Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our March forum, recorded. Now, please mute your mics so that you are not disturbing the presenter, and feel free to type in your questions, and then we will get back to them when we have our question and answer session. Now, I hope all of you can see the presentation. Today we have our very talented LSA, Jaspinda Dhillon, who is going to present on understanding autism and effective behavior management strategies. Now, as always, we struggle with how do we cope with whatever is happening in class? How do we approach and support the student? Because remember, every child is individual. Every child has something that's unique to themselves. That does not mean that we cannot apply different techniques that have been used across the field. We can, but we may just need to modify, or of course, using our common sense, change the strategy to suit what the child needs. So without further ado, let's have Ms. Dhillon on.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. So over the next hour, we're going to be looking at the effective behavior management strategies that can be used within the classroom setting. We're going to look at, we're going to explore the autism spectrum disorder, discuss behavior management strategies, and also look a little bit into applied behavior analysis techniques that can be applied in the classroom as well. So, firstly, what is autism? Autism spectrum disorder, or also known as ASD, is a neurodevelopment condition which can be characterized by challenges in social communication, restricted interests, and repetitive behaviors. The communication can be verbal and nonverbal communication. The key characteristics are social communication challenges. So this could be this difficulty understanding nonverbal cues, maintaining conversations, or interpreting a tone of voice. Restricted interests, which is intense focus on specific topics or activities. Repetitive behaviors, which is actions like hand flapping, walking, or repeated phrases. Sensory sensitivities, which is over or under reaction to sound, light, textures, or smells. So it's important to remember that autism is on a spectrum because it affects each individual's differently. Some may require significant support, while others may be able to live independently. There's a very wide range of personality traits and strengths and challenges you might have when you're autistic. So, for example, one student might struggle with verbal communication but excel in math, while another might have sensory sensitivities that makes loud environments overwhelming. So understanding each child is different, and finding the right way to support them is key.
Right. So just, I will be stepping in and out like I always do. So what I want you to do is I want you to now think about your student. Is there anything that you are seeing there? Remember, we've talked about comorbidity. So sometimes a certain identification may be more dominant, and you might be seeing some of these traits, and you're not sure if that child is also presenting autism along with whatever they are. It's always good to keep in mind and also to look further into it if there are other traits that are coming up along with this. The reason why it is good to identify this is because you can then make sure that the support that you're putting in place is more appropriate.
To better understand the varying needs of a child, autism is normally classed into these three levels. This is not meant to label or limit the child, but it's to kind of give a guide to identify the appropriate support and the resources needed to help the child. So at level 1, the child may struggle with social interactions and communication, but typically they function independently. They might find it challenging to initiate conversations, maintain friendships, or adapt in changes in routine. So with some support, they're able to navigate their daily life successfully. On level 2, the child might have more noticeable difficulties in social communication and behavior. They might have limited or repetitive speech, and they might struggle significantly with change, and exhibit behaviors that are more obvious to others as well. So these individuals would need more of a structured support and help manage their daily tasks and social situations. And in the third level, it's children with much more severe challenges in communication, social interactions, and behaviors. They may have very limited verbal skills, repetitive behaviors, and if there's any changes in their routine, this may lead to high levels of distress. These children would require a much more intensive and more like round-the-clock support to ensure their safety and also their well-being. So now we're going to look at the challenges faced in the classroom. In the classroom, students with autism may exhibit behaviors. Some of the common behaviors that can be observed with students with autism is difficulties with transitions, which is moving from one class to another or one subject to another. Especially if the student doesn't know what is expected of them. Another is communication barriers, when a student who struggles to express their needs, which may lead to them being frustrated or act out and could even lead to a meltdown. Sensory overload, this is when they're exposed to bright lights or loud noises, crowded spaces. This can be very overwhelming and lead to meltdowns as well. Social interactions is more for group work or playtime, which is unstructured. And this may be stressful for the students who find social situations confusing. So it's important that the behaviors that the child may be presenting is not intentional, but often a response to the challenges that they're facing in the environment. So an example may be a student might have a meltdown because they're overwhelmed by a loud and unexpected noise, and because they don't understand what is expected of them. So, for example, in a school situation, this could be when the fire alarm goes off. So this is a loud and unexpected noise, and if they're not given time to practice a routine and give the proper accommodations such as headphones, this could lead to them having a meltdown in this situation. So remembering to identify the reasons or why behind these behaviors, we're able to find the root cause and provide better support for the students.
So most of you know that sensory overload and sensory integration is a topic that's very, very dear to my heart. It is also one of the most important things that we need to keep in mind in the situations that the children today, the learners today are facing. We've done, I think, I don't know, maybe 2-3 forums already on sensory integration, on sensory support, on sensory needs. However, when I am talking with schools or when I'm talking to others, I still see that there is not a clear understanding of this. So hopefully, inshallah, we'll have one more session on that. Because a lot of the challenges that are faced in the classroom by students, a lot of it is actually sensory related.
So now we're going to look at some of the behavior management strategies. So as I mentioned earlier, behavior is a form of communication. So when the student with autism is exhibiting these challenging behaviors, they're often trying to tell us something. For example, if a child were to throw a pen and paper across their room, they could actually be trying to say that this task may be too hard for them, or they may need a break from the task. A student who covers their ears, they could also be trying to say that the environment is too loud for them. Or if a student is avoiding eye contact, they may be feeling overwhelmed. So by identifying these triggers, or also known as antecedents of behaviors, we can better respond to their needs and apply the strategies. So we're going to be looking at both proactive and reactive strategies. Proactive strategies.
Sorry, Jazz. Before we go on, can you guys list some of the behaviors that you are seeing in your classroom? So you can list some examples here, list it in the chat, list some examples so that if we open the floor and we can have some discussions about it.
Okay. So first we're going to be looking at the proactive strategies. So proactive strategies are something that are used to try and help prevent the challenging behaviors from occurring. So the first one is visual supports. So tools like visual schedules, social stories, visual cues can help students understand what is expected of them. And so the first one I've shown here in the image on the left is of a visual schedule showing the day's activities with timings. And so you can see, I've given the whole week, but normally you could go through each in the morning with the child. For example, Monday, that first they're going to start with literacy and go through the day with them accordingly. And then they know what is expected of them within that day of school. On the image on the right is an example of a social story for a child preparing for their first day of school with a new classroom and a new teacher. So they're saying, tomorrow will be different. I will be in my new classroom and I will meet my new teacher. And reminding them this is okay, I will feel safe, the adults in the room will look after me. So this will help the student know what to expect and help them reduce their anxiety and prepare for the transition day.
Okay, so proactive strategies are what you want to put in place before a situation arises. So you are trying to preempt. So going back, Ms. Jazz, in the chat, there are barriers that the LSAs are facing, some problems. So there's one that says biting, grasping, steaming, scratching, flapping, sensory need of smooth areas, squinting, unable to make eye contact, is not responding to the name, avoiding eye contact, no eye contact, or unable to focus when writing, unable to sit for 5 minutes. Now, so you already know what the barriers are, right? So being proactive means that I know that this is the problem that I am going to face. So proactive, I am going to prepare something where I can work with this child before I see it happening. So you can see the example of social stories. So social stories are very versatile. They can be in any situation. They can be used in any situation, and they are very, very effective. The reason they are so effective is because they are so versatile. You can use them, you can change them, you can use pictures, you can use images, you can use real life pictures of the children in that situation. You can use pictures of that area around. You can use the widgets to make this whatever is required. So you are being proactive by preparing to replace a desired behavior. Of course, along with that, you must use other strategies. But proactive strategies is what you do when you want to preempt. You don't want it to happen. Just like your ABC chart. In your ABC chart, you are getting to the root of the behavior. Why is it happening, right? So you are now going to find out why it is happening, and then you are going to be proactive about it. So the visual timetable, is that a visual timetable, Ms. Jess?
Yeah, it is on the left, but it's of the
Yeah.
whole week. So
Yeah, so the visual timetable is, as Ms. Jess has said, is important because it gives the child an understanding or a preparation of what is to come. All right. Like, would you like to give us some examples of how you use this with your student?
with my student, I would only use, instead of using the whole week, and he doesn't have a personal visual schedule, but there's one within the classroom. So at the beginning of the day, once he's come in and settled in, we'll go through what are the classes and the timings for everything of what is going on in that day. And throughout the day, I will keep bringing him back to remind him of what we're going to be having next.
Okay, thank you. Next.
So the other visual supports that you can use to help is timers. Timers can be used to either, it could be used to limit a break time, or to suggest that there will be some sort of transition, whether it's finishing a task or the end of a lesson, or also for their break time as well. So the timers are very versatile and can be used in different situations. But the reason that it's so helpful and is because it really helps the student know what to expect, and as they can see the timer reducing. I've also put here some of these visuals that also can be added to your lanyard in school to keep reminding and prompting the students of good behavior, such as good listening, good looking, good sitting. And so these can be really helpful prompts that can be used throughout the day for the student as well.
So you are using the timers. I'm just going to step in so that I give you better ideas. You're using the timer to give the child a concrete understanding of what time is. Now, when you tell a little child that, oh, you're going to have to stop this in 5 minutes, and then you walk away and you come back after 5 minutes expecting him to understand what 5 minutes is, it's not going to work, right? Either you can do the countdown, that means you go 5 minutes, 4 minutes, 3 minutes, and then break this down further into little pockets of time so that the child, he or she, understands that he's going to transition to the next step. That is the initial stage where you support them with lots of prompting, lots of time, the telling and saying. You can then graduate the child to a timer. Or if your child is already able to understand, then you can already start your child off with this. Now, the visuals, visuals with a good listening, good looking, good sitting, it is a very, very essential and crucial part of your child's learning, because it demonstrates desired behavior. It gives the behavior that we expect the child to have. So what do we want? We want to reward that. So when there's good sitting, flash that. Show the good sitting. Use your words as well to further reinforce, to say that this is what you want. When you get a desired behavior, over reward, so that the child understands that when I have the desired behavior, I will get lots of rewards.
Yeah, and also the behavior, the language that is used by these, it's very important to keep the language very positive, and this will even reinforce the children even further. It's also very important to have a structured environment within the classroom, so there'll be clear routines and consistent expectations. That also helps to create a sense of predictability for the children. So within the classroom, there is already a routine set, which is the timetable that is given. But other things that you could use is, instead of looking at the visual timetable of the entire day, you could also carry around with you a first, then, and next board to keep reminding the child of this is what's happening. It could be like first math, then maybe a break of some playtime, and then we're going to have science. And then, so this makes it more focused for them rather than having to see the entire day's layout. And it makes it also reduces their anxiety a bit more. Within classrooms, they'll have a routine set as well. So in the mornings, normally you have class registration, you have the national anthem. Some, depending on the class, they have some morning tasks set up for the students to do while they're waiting for the other students to arrive. So these expectations are already set. So getting your student to follow in and blend in with the rest of the class and follow this routine. Depending on the age group, some students could have designated spots within the class on where they sit. So if it's for the younger years, they will be sitting on the classroom mat and have their own seats on where they would need to sit, or they could have their names on the back of chairs, so they also know when it's time to do work at the table. This is where I have to go and sit, and this is my station, and everything that I need is there. Also for this class routine, something that could be used is like a cleanup song. So all the students immediately know that when this song is put on, it's time to stop everything that we're doing and to clean up. And it also helps with transitioning between classes.
So the facility of the first, then, and next. Again, when we talk about creating clear routines and consistent expectations, what students with different needs and abilities crave for is all of them, or rather most of them, want to know what's coming next. They don't like surprises. It doesn't sit well with them. So that's what happens when you give them a surprise, or when you change their routine. You'll see meltdowns, you'll see the screaming, the tantrums, and all of that coming up. And then you ask yourself, I wonder why this child is so upset today. Yes, because you've just changed their whole day without telling them that this is what is going to happen. So yes, life sometimes is uncertain. You cannot always predict to say it's going to happen this way, but you can try to keep it within the box. You can try and keep it structured. You can, if you know that there are changes coming up and you have 5 minutes, you can use those 5 minutes wisely. Don't tell yourself, oh, it's okay, the child will manage. No, quickly be proactive and think about, how do I make this happen? How do I now, because I know a tantrum is going to come up if I change, is there any possibility that I can ask the teacher maybe for 5 minutes extra to prepare my student for the changes, so that instead of throwing him into the deep end or her into the deep end, you can take her out of the class for 5 minutes, speak to her, calm her down, explain the changes, show whatever you have, your social stories, your first, then, and next, your whatever it is, your timer, to explain that you have now 2 minutes, we're going to do this, and then we're going to go into the class, and this is what you're going to expect, blah blah blah, so that when you go in, hopefully that class is the changeover is more settled, and the child goes into a more settled environment. But always remember to use your common sense to see what's best for the situation.
The next one is sensory accommodations. So we could have something such as noise canceling headphones. So if you know that your students may be sensitive to loud noises, we could use these noise canceling headphones. Another one is fidget tools, which can help students manage their sensory input. And these are really helpful because there's such a large variety and range, and that can be used depending on what your student prefers, and they could be given a choice. And this could really help manage their sensory input, and it can be brought with them throughout the day for whenever they would need it. Yeah. Another one, the most important, I think, strategy for me is positive reinforcement, because rewarding desired behavior really encourages students to repeat them. So if you, for example, if you were to praise a student for raising their hand, this would cause them to repeat this behavior in the future, and instead of like shouting out. So for example, so this example could be applied to the token economy board. So every time the student were to raise their hand rather than shouting out, a token could be given. And once they've earned the necessary tokens, they would get whatever activity or toy or game they have chosen. So whatever reinforcer that they have chosen that they want to earn for that day. So in the token economy board here, they've chosen iPad. So once they get all the 5 tokens, they'll get an iPad. So reinforcers don't always have to just be the token economy board. It could also be, they could also be reinforced through verbal praise, high five. These are all social reinforcers. Then there's also activities such as games. So these are all different types of reinforcers that could be used with the child.
Now for this one, when you give the choices, right? For the choices, you can, again, please using your common sense, use this to suit what your child needs, not according to what you want. So remember, always, before you can make any of these things effective, the most important thing is when you meet your child, immediately start to recognize what is it that he enjoys, what is it that gets him motivated. I've heard many people come and tell me, many of my LSA says, Miss, I don't know, I can't find anything to motivate my child, my student. I can't I can't find I don't think there's anything that motivates him. There's no such thing as nothing that motivates a learner. Yes, Bushra, you can print it out and use it. You can find it online. It's really easy to get, and you can even buy your Velcro and make it yourself. Now, a lot of these things that Jess has been sharing with you are easy to make and easy to do. You don't need to go and invest huge sums of money to get all these things and to make it work, right? Oh, okay. So Irene, if his mom is not allowing him to do spinning, maybe substitute that with bouncing on a trampoline. If you have a trampoline in school, that also helps. The spinning is a sensory need.
So even though we have all these proactive strategies in place, there are still times that challenging behaviors can still occur. So we would need to know our de-escalation techniques, learn about redirection and post-incident support. So when a child is getting dysregulated and when they've reached, as you can see in this image, the arc of a tantrum, and they reach the orange zone, and when a tantrum occurs, it's important that we respond to the child calmly and effectively. So when the child is having a meltdown, you should avoid overwhelming them with questions or demands, and listen to what they have to say and respect their feelings. So you want to avoid placing demands on them at this time, and let them either self-regulate or help them to regulate if they're unable to do so. So you could provide them with a few choices, such as, okay, let's practice our deep breaths, or counting, or drinking some water, going for a walk, or going to a calm or safe environment that for them. So, for example, if a child is having a meltdown, you'd want to stay calm, use a neutral tone and give them space. And once they've started to reach, as you can see in this arc, they begin to calm down and they return back to normal. you would want to help them process what happened and reinforce positive alternatives. So if a student was frustrated because they weren't able to communicate, you could teach them to either use a visual card or to ask for help next time. So I've put the visual card of help here. And redirecting the behaviors, you're offering the child alternative or choices. For example, if a student is refusing to do a task, you might say, would you like to do this now, or would you like to take a break? So they still have to do the task at the end, but if they would need, they could have this break and come back to it at a later time. Post-incident support is after the behavior has subsided, you would help the student process what happened. For example, you could use a social story to explain why the behavior has occurred and what they can do differently next time. I put the widgets of all the different emotions so that the child could look through these emotions and try to explain how they were feeling at that time and what might have triggered them to have this behaviors.
Right. So in this case now, what if your child is not able to speak? When a child is not able to speak, it doesn't mean that the child cannot communicate. There are many ways to communicate. You can use, like Ms. Jess said, you can use pictures, you can use images, you can use your social stories to ask them, to explain to them about another child who may have been facing the same situation, and showing them, linking it to the expressions, right? It is important that when you are speaking to a child like that, your face must model the expression that you want to see. So if you are sad, you're not going to be sad like that. You're going to be sad. When you're happy, you are smiling. So that way you are now modeling and allowing the child to look at the images and associate it with what a real person and an image looks like. That's very, very important. Modeling is very, very important. Okay, right?
So one of the ways that you could help children associate these emotions and to not only help them recognize their own emotions, but also what others might be feeling is using one of the strategies, which is zones of regulation. So in the green zone, children would be the emotions are happy, calm, they're in a state that's ready to learn. If they're in the blue zone, they may be feeling sad, tired, sick, or bored. If they're in the yellow zone, they could be frustrated, worried, a little bit silly or excited. And if they're in red zone, they could be angry, terrified, out of control, yelling, hitting. So helping the child associate their emotions with the zones could also help them better communicate how they may be feeling and what they could do when they're in these different zones. So, for example, if the child is in the red zone, you could suggest to them that, okay, maybe we could go for a walk, drink some water, or practice some deep breathing. And if they're maybe in the blue zone, maybe they could have a snack, or if the situation required, maybe take a nap. So it really depends on this child.
Zones of regulations can actually be a whole hour or 2 hours of forum by itself. There is so much that you can do with zones of regulation. Some classrooms are running totally on this. So everything within the classroom is centered on these zones of regulation. Today, students are trained to understand which zone they are. I think one of the LSAs there was struggling today with getting her student to emotionally regulate, and she had sent me a message. So I think you know who you are, one of the things that I would encourage you to explore is looking at the zones of regulation, looking at how you can maybe start to train your student to understand which zone he is in. These are again available online. They are free. You can go and download them. You can use them. There is also a simple training manual with it, if I'm not wrong. Otherwise, if there is anybody here who is very well trained in zones of regulation or who knows how to use them with all the explanations, please do reach out to me and we can have it on for the next forum. Thank you.
If your class is not using these zones of regulation, what you could also do is have the picture of the child and have a small visual card with the different zones. And the child is able to move their picture within the different zones to demonstrate how they may be feeling at that time. Okay, now we're going to move on to applied behavior analysis, which is ABA techniques within the classroom. Applied behavior analysis, or ABA, is a scientific approach to understanding and changing behaviors. So it's based on the ideas that behaviors can be taught or modified through reinforcement and repetition. So ABA focus on reinforcement, prompting, shaping, and generalization. There are, in ABA, they identify 4 functions of behavior. So the child may be presenting the behavior because of a sensory need. So they get automatically reinforced by doing things such as staring at a fan, picking their pen, stimming. Some children are like obsessed with flushing the toilet or watching doors close. So it could be any kind of automatic reinforcement. Escape, the child would try, like the function of behavior to escape is maintained by the removal of the demand. So if you were to tell the child, okay, we need to write 1 sentence, and they immediately flop to the floor, they're yelling or actually running away from the classroom. But the minute that you were to say to them, it's okay, you don't have to do the sentence anymore, and this causes them to stop their behavior, that means that they were doing all of these behaviors purely just to escape from the demand of write a sentence. Another behavior, it could be mediated by attention. So they may be having behaviors such as if they were to, while everyone else is in the class is focused, and the student were to stand up and scream, and then that causes all of the other students and teachers to put all their attention towards them, this could be reinforcing for the student. Especially if, also when running away from the classroom, this would cause teachers to immediately run after them, and this could be very exciting for them and also gives them reinforcement. Tangible is when they would want some sort of item. So normally for children, it could be either an iPad or toy, or sometimes food such as cookies or sweets or candy. So within ABA, there are a few techniques, such as discrete trial training. So this is breaking skills into smaller steps, and which have clear prompts and rewards. For example, for the younger years, if you're teaching a student to identify phonics cards, you could reward them by, for example, correctly pointing to the sound D, from an array of maybe like 2 or 3 phonics cards. In task analysis, you're breaking complex tasks into smaller steps. So for example, teaching a student to wash their hands, you would need to break it into smaller steps, like, okay, you need to turn on the water, apply the soap, turn off the tap, and then dry your hands. And along with that, you could also provide visual aids with these steps as well. Functional communication training. So this is teaching students to communicate their needs in appropriate ways, like using a picture card, or instead of hitting. So if yeah, so for example, if a child wants something like the toy that another child is holding, rather than snatching the toy away from the child, that you could redirect them to communicate to the child by asking them, can I have this toy, or can I have my turn now? For token economy systems that we've looked at them earlier, you're using token or points to reward the positive behaviors, which can later be exchanged for an activity or an item that the child would want. In prompting and fading, so you would normally provide cues to guide behaviors, and this then gradually, once you see the child getting more familiar, you could gradually reduce the support as the child learns. So if you were to say initially that with the same example of identifying the phonics cards, if initially the child is not able to make the association between the sound and the formation of the letter, you could physically guide them to point at the correct picture, the correct phonics cards. And once they're able to make that association, you could slowly reduce your prompting, so to eventually that they would not require any prompt at all. Okay, so now we're going to look at some case studies. The first one is a student that is struggling to transition from recess to math class, and they're refusing to leave the playground. So if you guys could write in the chat what you would think the possible strategies that you could use for this child to help him in his transition.
What would you do? Just write something in. There's no right, there's no wrong. Just think. Oh, I like that transition song. Anything else? Anybody else? Okay. Vanessa, again, we also have a bell for outside when it's loud. Okay. Good suggestions, Vanessa. Thank you. Anybody else? Any other suggestions? Okay, yes. Offering fun activities. Okay, thank you. All right, Miss Jazz, what would we do?
Okay. Okay. So some of the strategies that you could use in the situation is, using the visual timer and keeping it within the playground to give the child, yes, you said 5 minutes before the 5-minute warning. Also, you could also provide a transition object to help to motivate the child, such as their favorite toy, to help them move on to the next activity. You could also reward the student if they're really struggling with this behavior. Reward the student for successfully transitioning with either a sticker or token. Transitions are really important, especially if you're working one-on-one with the child and their preferred activity is to go into the playground or go into the sensory room, and you're alone with the child. You need to prepare them for that transition to get them back into the classroom.
Thank you. That was amazing suggestions from everybody. Well done. You are exactly spot on.
The next case study is going to be about reducing meltdowns. So a student becomes overwhelmed during group work and is feeling frustrated. What can we do in this situation? Give him a chance to go on his favorite spot for 5 minutes.
Very good, Jocelyn. Anybody else? Any other suggestions?
Go for a walk. Show him visual feelings if it's not verbal.
Task board. You saw the task board. Good one as well. Chunky's work. Very good. Okay, very good. All right. What would we do?
Okay. So how we can support them is we can provide the child a quiet space for breaks, or even if they would like go for a walk. You could also teach them self-regulation strategies like deep breathing, and use a visual schedule to show them when the work will end, to help the student feel more in control and to help reduce these breakdowns. Yeah. Okay. For the last case study will be for group activity. So a student is avoiding their peers and interactions during group activities and not participating. What could we do?
Well done. I love this one where you validate their thoughts and feelings. Train the students how to ask for break. I need to bring this up, I thought, because I really liked it. Where you teach the students how to ask for a break, and then you validate their feelings and their thoughts. So you let them, make them feel important and a part of it. So Bushra is saying, use a whiteboard for expression and games. Anything else?
How could you get them to interact with their peers, especially in a group setting?
All right, very good. Let's see what you suggest.
So children with autism really struggle with group activities and social communication. So you could peer model and where a classmate demonstrates how to join a group. You yourself could also model this behavior to them. And if a child is really struggling, you could provide social scripts on, like in I Play Too, or reinforce small steps like making eye contact or sitting with their peers. Even getting a child to join in with the group could be a big step for them, and helping them build their confidence and work on their social skills over time. Yeah,
Correct. We also have, pair them with understanding patient peers. Very good. Always talk and ask them if they are okay, because sometimes being too quiet is alarming as well. That's true. Changing the group with their favorite buddy. You can share a social scenario with the kids. Well done. Okay, are we at the end, or do we have anything more, Jess?
One last slide, which is about team approach, which is really important that that you're not alone in this, and that it's important to collaborate with the teachers within the classroom, the parents, and any other specialists which are involved, such as speech therapists or occupational therapists. It's really important that there's a consistency across the environments that the child is in, whether it be home, school, and therapy, and help reinforce skills and the behaviors, and maintain this consistency. It's also important for ourselves to have self-care, and not forgetting to take care of yourself. And because although we're supporting children with autism, can be very rewarding, but it's also very challenging. So managing your stress, and when you need support as well, seek it out, and engaging in professional development to stay effective and motivated. and to be in the best headspace for the children.
So it's important that you take care, that you take care of yourself, because it's like I always use the examples of the aircraft. When you go on the aircraft and there's an emergency and you know those masks will drop, what do they say? They say, please put the mask on yourself before you can put the mask on others. So you are a very, very important part of this inclusion journey. It's important that you take care of yourself. You know, always reach out. Those in the inclusion family are aware we are here. We're always here to help whenever you need. Now, if you are still looking for a job and you haven't got a job, I think we have shared our contacts. Please reach out to us. Share your CVs with us. We will try to get everybody a placement or a job where possible. We cannot always guarantee, but we will try our best. Before we end, I just want to say thank you, Ms. Jess. That was a very, very brilliant and fantastic presentation. And I'm glad you had your key takeaways as well, where, you know, we understand what it is that you were trying to get across to us. To let you all know, we have also curated a simple, a 20-module LSA course for those of you who are interested to join. If you reach out to us, we will share the link for you, and you can look at it and see if it would be beneficial for you to do the training. It is quite comprehensive in the sense that it covers a little bit of everything for you to understand what it is to be an LSA. I think we'll stop now because it's time to move on. I hope everybody had a very, very good time listening, as did we. Thank you very much, Ms. Jess, for your presentation. Is there anything else that you would like to add before we close up the meeting?
No, thank you so much.
All right. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Bye.